Hello and Assalamualaikum. So in today's presentation, we will present about inflation and unemployment in Philippines. But before we start, let me introduce myself and my group members. I am Aini Sofia, and the other members are Adrina Natasha, Aisha Azhara, Hazwan Shami, Muhammad Aizad, and we also have Muhammad Hanif. The Philippines has a strong and lively economy in East Asia and the Pacific. This is because people in the country spend a lot of money, the job market is active, and many Filipinos who work abroad send their money back home. With expanding urbanization, a growing middle class, and a sizable and young population, the country has many advantages. As of 2021, the population of the Philippines is 113.9 million. The Philippines engages in both exports and imports. The Philippines imports products such as machinery, electronics, fuel, vehicles, steel, and grains from China, Japan, the United States, South Korea, and Thailand. The country exports products such as electronic products, machinery, clothes, coconut oil, and fruits to the United States, Japan, China, Hong Kong, and Singapore. Manufacturing and agriculture are two of the Philippines' main industries. Besides electronics, the manufacturing sector includes products like food and beverages, chemicals, textiles, and garments. The country has an agricultural sector that produces crops like rice, corn, coconut, sugarcane, and various fruits and vegetables. The Philippines has faced challenges in terms of unemployment and underemployment rates. As of 2021, the unemployment rate was around 2.63%, and the underemployment rate, which includes people who work part-time or are not able to utilize their skills fully, was approximately 15.9%.
Now I will explain about inflation. The definition of inflation is that prices of things go up over time. We measure inflation using a price index, which tells us how much prices of a set of goods and services have risen. When a country's economy has inflation, it affects how much people spend on things for their homes. Next, types of inflation in Philippines. We will discuss three common types, which are demand pull inflation, cost push inflation, and built-in inflation. Firstly, demand pull inflation is, for example, when government launches a significant infrastructure programs leads to increased public spending on a construction. As a result, it surges in demand for construction, materials, labor, and services. The consequence is price rise across the construction industry due to high demand suppressing supply. For instance, increased construction costs lead to demand pull inflation in Philippines. Secondly is cost push inflation. When the global oil prices experience significant increase, the impact is higher production costs of transportation, manufacturing, and agriculture sectors. As a result, businesses raise prices to compensate for increased energy expenses, passing costs to consumers. This is the example that lead to cost push inflation. Lastly, notable increase in prices of essential goods like food, housing, and utilities is called as food inflation. The workers demand higher wages to maintain their standard of living. This causes employers facing increased labor costs, press on wages, increase to consumer through higher prices.
For the next part, I'd like to discuss the causes that contribute to inflation in the Philippines. Firstly, an increase in the money supply. It is caused by expansionary monetary policies, excessive government spending, or large inflows of foreign capital that can lead to inflation. When there is more money in circulation, it can drive up prices. Secondly, fluctuations in the exchange rate can play a role. If the domestic currency weakens against foreign currencies, it can result in higher import prices. This, in turn, can lead to inflation as the cost of imported goods rises. Thirdly, increases in internationally traded commodity prices, such as oil, food, and metals, can raise production costs. These higher costs are often passed on to consumers, causing an increase in prices. And lastly, government policies and regulations also have an impact. Changes in tax rates, trade policies, subsidies, or price controls can directly or indirectly affect inflation levels. To manage inflation and maintain price stability, policymakers and economists need to closely monitor these factors. They need to develop strategies and policies to address the causes of inflation and ensure the country's economy to remain stable. The impact of inflation in Philippines. The first one is higher prices for imported goods. A weaker peso makes it costlier for our country to import goods like oil, machinery, electronics, and essential. Consequently, consumers and businesses pay higher prices for these goods, leading to overall price increases. Secondly, increase in production costs. Fluctuating exchange rates raise the cost of imported materials for local production. This compels businesses to spend more, and to maintain profits, they raise prices, that causing inflation. The third one, high and unpredictable inflation rates. High and unpredictable inflation rates create economic instability. People lose confidence in spending due to uncertain future prices and declining currency value, while businesses become hesitant to invest. So in summary, a weaker peso has a significant effects on imported goods and inflation. It leads to higher prices for imported goods, increase in production costs, and high and unpredictable inflation rates. These impacts require careful monitoring and management by policymakers and stakeholders to ensure a stable economic environment.
And I'm going to explain about unemployment in Philippines. Being jobless and actively looking for work is referred to as unemployment. Unemployed people in the Philippines are those who are working age, actively seeking employment but are unable to do so. The number of jobless people as a proportion of the total labor force is used to determine the country's unemployment rate. For the example of the Philippines unemployment rate is considered a new college grad with an engineering degree who is actively seeking employment in the industry. They have been applying for jobs and going to interview for a number of months, but they have not been successful in getting jobs. In this situation, the person would be regarded as jobless until they locate a suitable position. I'm going to talk about types of unemployment. There is 4 types of unemployment, and the first type is structural unemployment. It arises from long-term changes in the economy structure. The skills possessed by the available workforce do not align with the job requirements. It can be seen in sectors that are becoming obsolete or regions with limited economic diversity. And the second is frictional unemployment. Temporary and occurs when individuals are transitioning between jobs or seeking better opportunities. A natural part of the labor market as people enter or exit the workforce. And the third type of unemployment is cyclical unemployment. During economic downturns, reduced aggregate demand leads to decreased production and job layoff. Unemployment tends to decrease as demand for goods and services rises. And lastly, the type of unemployment is seasonal unemployment. Sectors such as agriculture or tourism due to varying labor demand throughout the year.
So next, I will explain about the causes of unemployment. There are two types of causes of unemployment. First is not fully utilized skill and qualification. Individual works part-time or in position that don't fully utilize their skill and qualification. This problem is especially prevalent in rural areas where limited job opportunities force people to settle for jobs that don't match their capabilities. Next is skill mismatch between job seekers and employees' demand. The education system often fails to provide graduates with the necessary skills and qualification needed for available job position, exacerbating the problem.
Next is the impact of unemployment. As we know, unemployment has negative effects on both the economy and individuals' well-being. I will explain how unemployment affects productivity, economic output, skill development, and individual lives. The economic impact on unemployment is wastes human potential and leads to inefficient use of labor resources. Moreover, when people are not in jobs that don't match their skills, this resulting in lower productivity and reduced economic output. Secondly, skill gaps. Unemployment creates a gap between available labor and industry requirements. Lack of job opportunities often means lower wages, financial instability, and poverty causing dissatisfaction and demotivation, leads to skill gap. Other than that, alignment between workforce, skills, and market demands affect industry growth.
For this part, I would like to talk about inflation rate in Philippines. The table shows the inflation rates in Philippines from 2018 to 2022. As we can see, in this period, this country's lowest inflation rate was 2.4% in 2019 and 2022, whereas the highest inflation average rate was last year in 2022. The average inflation rate in 2022 was 5.8% as compared to 3.9% in the year 2021. The faster year-over-year growth rates in the index of food and non-alcoholic beverage, which increased to 10.2% in December 2022 from 10% in November 2022 was the main cause of the higher inflation in December 2022 compared to November 2022. Restaurant and accommodation service were next, with their inflation rate was increasing to 7% from 6.5% in November 2022. Housing, water, electricity, gas, and other fuels came in third with an inflation rate of 7% in December 2022 compared to 6.9% of the month before. Despite the fact that the Philippines economy is mainly dependent on remittance from foreigners and that service account for the vast majority of GDP, the country is nevertheless seen as freshly industrialized. Due to disruption in the agricultural food supply or changes in the price of oil globally, the inflation rate is unstable. As a result, even though the price of other CPI components have only slightly increased, the average inflation rate can reach double-digit levels. Next, I will talk about strategies how they can control inflation. First, the monetary policy. The central bank, Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, can use monetary policy tools to control inflation. The central bank can raise interest rates, making borrowing more expensive for individuals and businesses. The central bank also can reduce money supply and curb inflationary pressures. The central bank may also boost reserve requirements for commercial banks or sell government securities. Second, the fiscal policy. The government can use fiscal policy measures to limit inflation. This involves managing public spending, taxation, and government borrowing. The government can raise taxes while cutting spending, and tax increase will result in a decrease in the quantity of money available for spending. So this will result in less consumption of products and services, which will cut the price. By maintaining fiscal discipline and avoiding excessive deficits, the government can reduce inflationary pressures.
As can be seen on the table, it shows that the highest unemployment rate was in November 2021, which was 6.5%. The estimated unemployment rate in November 2022 was 4.2%, which was the lowest. Next is measures or strategies to control unemployment. There are two different measures for controlling unemployment, which are monetary policy and fiscal policy. The central bank can lower interest rates to encourage borrowing, investment, and spending, which stimulates economic growth, creates jobs, and reduces unemployment. They can also inject money into the economy by buying government securities or lowering reserve requirements for banks. This increases the money supply, making it easier for banks to lend, further stimulating economic activity and job creation. The government can increase its spending on infrastructure projects, education, healthcare, and other sectors, which stimulates economic activity, creates demand for goods and services, and generates job opportunities. The government can also lower taxes while increasing spending. When taxes are low, consumer purchasing power will rise along with their wages, and to match the growing level of customer demand, providers will need to hire additional staff.
So the conclusion is we were able to identify macroeconomic concepts such as public policy, inflation, and unemployment, as well as strategies to address this problem in the Philippines. Inflation may be classified into three categories: demand pull inflation, cost push, and built-in inflation. Three types of unemployment are cyclical unemployment, structural unemployment, and seasonal unemployment. The idea we studied was on Philippine governmental policy. Fiscal policy refers to government spending and tax policies that impact the overall economy, while money by a central bank to